Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session where we are going to be introducing the Better Mining 2023 Impact Report. I'm very excited to be here. We're going to reflect on some of the significant strides we've made in 2023 in creating a more responsible and transparent supply chain within the artisanal and small-scale mining sector. To introduce myself, my name is Heather Warren. I am the Operations Director for Better Mining. Before we get started, I want to cover a few housekeeping topics. So today's webinar is being recorded, and we will be able to share a link with you after the webinar is complete, which we are welcome to visit the content yourself and share it with colleagues if you want to. You'll see that as participants, your cameras and microphones have been switched off. But if you do want to ask any questions anytime throughout the webinar, feel free to put a question in the Q&A. You can direct the questions directly to any of the panelists if you'd like to. And then at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session, which we'll try and address as many of those questions as possible. And just so you know, the last 15 minutes during that Q&A session, there will be no recording. It won't be recorded. So with that, let's get started. So I wanted to start by first introducing Better Mining for those of you who are new to it. Better Mining is an initiative that operates directly at artisanal and small-scale mining sites. Our primary focus is around improving conditions and reducing environmental, social, and governance risks, and advancing human rights. By implementing real-time data monitoring systems, we help ensure that global supply chains, especially those for minerals like cobalt and 3Ts, are responsibly sourced. We're also credited by the RMI as an upstream mechanism. Our 2023 Better Mining Impact Report, we're proud to highlight several achievements that demonstrate the tangible impact of our work, and I want to share a few of those with you before we get started. Over 2023 period, we served over 17,400 ASM miners on 29 mine sites. Another notable achievement this year has been our efforts to improve gender inclusion. Through our targeted corrective action plans and capacity building initiatives, we've made progress in promoting women's participation within the mining sector and helping create more equitable opportunities at these sites, and we're very proud of that. A third achievement has been the use of our digital tool Trace, which has made significant advancements in supply chain transparency. This tool strengthens due diligence processes by securing the chain of custody for minerals sourced from conflict-affected and high-risk areas. And then the fourth thing I wanted to highlight was just our successful expansion into new geographies. In 2023, we've started and we continue in 2024, the mica supply chain in Madagascar. So we're adding a crucial dimension to our impact and reinforcing our commitment to transparency and responsible mining. And we'll hear a little bit more about that during the panel session. So with that, I would like to welcome our two external panelists for today's webinar, Petra and Tristan, and our Better Mining team, Quentin, Gloriose, and Carolyne. And I'm just going to give a little bit of an introduction to each of our panelists, and then we can start by asking them some questions and having them share some of their insights from the 2023 report. So first, I'd like to introduce Petra Pettersson. Petra is the inclusion lead at Polestar, and she plays a critical role in shaping the company's sustainability and inclusion strategies with a keen focus on diversity, representation, and equality. She's also deeply committed to advancing human rights within the supply chain, ensuring ethical practices are upheld. Petra's work is instrumental in driving Polestar's vision of a more responsible future. So welcome, Petra, and thanks for joining us. We also have with us Tristan Minyati, who's the Group General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer at Trinity's Group. He provides extensive legal and compliance guidance. Tristan has a background, includes serving as a rule of law officer with the United Nations in Mali, where his efforts contributed to the justice sector reform in that country. Next, from the Better Mining side, I wanted to introduce Quentin. He's a project manager for Better Mining based in Paris. Quentin oversees our cobalt and copper supply chains and brings with him 5 years of experience in managing assessment and capacity building programs across Africa, Europe, and the Caribbean. His diverse background includes work in responsible mineral supply chains, human rights, and health systems. Next, I'm going to introduce, again from Better Mining, Gloriose Fumra. She's based in Kigali and also is a project manager for Better Mining. Glorious leads projects in the three T sectors in Rwanda and supports mining operations adhering to both national and international guidelines and compliant with due diligence standards. With nearly a decade of experience in the mining sector, Glorious brings a wealth of knowledge in responsible sourcing and compliance. And finally, I'm going to introduce Carolyne Clement. She's a project manager for Better Mining, and we'll welcome her to the panel as well today. She's based in Paris together with Quentin. She joined Better Mining as an analyst, and Carolyne is an expert with extensive experience in leading the risk identification and risk mitigation in mineral supply chains. She's led multiple projects in the 3T sector in the DRC and is now the focal point for all our mica projects in Madagascar, and we'll be sharing a little bit about that during the course of this webinar. So with that, I might start by passing over to Petra. And Petra, maybe you can tell us a little bit about Polestar, for those who don't know, and what was your process to deciding to support Better Mining, and why do you believe it's important for companies like yours to engage with initiatives like Better Mining?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And thank you for having me here today. And just by starting, for you that doesn't know Polestar very well, Polestar is an electric performance brand. We're headquartered in Gothenburg, Sweden, and we were established as late as in 2017. We were established initially as a joint venture between GV Holding and Volvo Cars. Today, we're incorporated in the UK and listed on the Nasdaq in New York. We have a 3-car lineup, and our purpose is to improve the society we live in by accelerating the shift to sustainable mobility. And we're based on 3 pillars: design, innovation, and sustainability. We can go to next slide and talk about our ESG strategy. We concentrate our sustainability efforts in 4 focus areas: climate neutrality, circularity, transparency, and inclusion. And as you all already have heard, the transition to a low carbon economy accelerates, and the demand for the minerals that support the energy transition ramps up. Vulnerable and marginalized groups repeatedly enjoy inequalities and face discrimination, and we realize that these abuses are more likely to occur in the fringes of the supply chain. And companies at the helm of these global supply chains, such as us, do have a responsibility to implement ethical business practices and strive towards fair labor standards. Within the area of inclusion, Polestar aims to build awareness around human rights and taking actions to create positive impact along our value chain. As an example, we trace identified high-risk materials down their supply chains for us to conduct supplier risk assessments and set actions for improvements together with our business partners to mitigate negative impact on the ground. Due to complex supply chains, we also recognize that we have a responsibility to mitigate negative impact where there is no direct traceability. And this is where Better Mining helps support our ESG strategy. We can go to next slide, please. Polestar joined the Better Mining program in 2023 to tackle challenges across the artisanal mining sector. For us, Better Mining is a giving back program to support and improve small-scale mining sector. As a general rule, we believe we can have greater impact if we inspire and collaborate with others to drive change, especially if we collaborate with credible multi-stakeholder initiatives. The automotive industry and supply chains are long, and there are many tiers, and therefore we collaborate with different initiatives in several sectors to tackle various challenges. The number of tiers in the supply chain, along with its complexity, is a challenge, but we're convinced that embedding safer and more equitable conditions across a very complex portion of the global mining sector is key. Therefore, we appreciate working in initiatives such as the Better Mining Initiative, as well as others, to identify risk and work with mitigation actions on site. Next slide, please. And what about the impact created? Artisanal and small-scale mining is a source of employment and income generation, and in many countries it's an important socioeconomic sector. However, extreme poverty and lack of economic opportunities makes it difficult for these workers to have enough leverage and negotiation power when it comes to, for example, their occupational health and safety, terms of employment and security at site. And support is needed to help the ASM operations to drive improvements and address the risks of human rights violations. Within the context of realities that the locals face on a daily basis, better mining directly enables and drives improvements. If you read the Better Mining Impact Report, you can read that 440 corrective actions are implemented just in 2023. And since programs start, it has a success rate of 71%. Next slide, please. Thanks to trained agents permanently deployed at the sites, data on incidents are recorded on what kind of risks a specific mine is facing. Monthly corrective action plans, so-called CAPs, to mitigate identified risks are reviewed with the local stakeholders, and the implementation is overseen and followed up by the Better Mining project team. And as a member in Better Mining, Polestar receives communication on the risks and progress of CAP implementation every quarter. And these reports gives us very valuable insights, and the discussions in our meetings are very much appreciated. One advantage for us when it comes to the Better Mining project and its assurance process is that it's also credited by the Responsible Minerals Initiative, as already mentioned. It's recognized for its implementation of OECD-aligned due diligence procedures and management systems. We hope that these actions within the Better Mining project can help lead to more formal ASM sector. And we believe we have to start somewhere, and that this is not the end, it's only the beginning. But greater and more collaboration is necessary, and this is why I'm here talking today, to inspire you and hopefully get more stakeholders interested to join the Better Mining program and support the ASM sector. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Petra. And I think it's such a great example of how we can work together, and working with Polestar has been really great for us, Better Mining, and hopefully it inspires and encourages others to do the same. Just going on what you said, maybe I'll turn to Quentin now to talk a little bit about what else we do in Better Mining. Risk monitoring is a big part of it, but we also provide digital traceability solutions. And Quentin, maybe you can explain to the audience a little bit exactly how it works.
Yes, sure. So digital traceability, well, what does it mean first? It means tracing the product from the mine or even the pit all the way to the export point, and to ensure that there's no contamination along the material flow, or that risk of contamination have been addressed appropriately, efficiently, and in a timely manner, and that there is full transparency with all parties at all time. So how does it work? Well, physically we work with tags. So Better Mining will provide like plastic tags with barcodes that the state agents in the DRC or in Rwanda will place on bags of minerals to seal them. And then Better Mining agents that are on site will scan those tags with their phone to enter the related traceability data, such as the date of production or the weight. And on the digital side, we use a platform that's called Trace, that's been developed by RCS with the help of external partners. And yeah, just having the data, the digital recording and management of data offers a better visualization, better clarity, and overall better understanding of the supply chain. So Once that is set up, we monitor the risks related to chain of custody, just like any other better mining risk category. So if you're familiar with our work, we assess different risk categories on sites like conflicts, human rights, working conditions, and when we have traceability in place, we assess the chain of custody risks. So we analyze incidents and risks when they occur, and we address them with corrective actions using our critical breach procedure for the most serious incidents. So to give you an example, we have a weight error that will show up in trace. So at point A, a bag of minerals is recorded at 50 kilograms, and at point B, it's recorded as 80 kilograms. So because our approach is to have boots on the ground, we have better mining staff that can investigate. Was it a technical problem? Was it a human error? Or was there actual contamination? And what do we do about it? And yeah, that's our approach. And then finally, we deliver the traceability reports for every lot that's about to be exported. And that's part of the necessary documentation that the exporters must provide. So in 2023, for example, we traced and validated 66 exports of 3Ts from Rwanda and DRC to the international market.
Amazing. That's great to share. Can you tell me a little bit why it's important? What is the importance of traceability? Because it is gaining a lot more credibility, I think, especially in the DRC and Rwanda.
Yeah, well, the first answer is transparency. So for the upstream producers, but also for the midstream and downstream buyers, so that they can increase their understanding of what the supply chain actually is, to increase their confidence that the minerals haven't been affected by a range of risks, including OECD risk, like the worst forms of child labor, know that they have financed armed groups in the region or fueled corruption. And yeah, and then for the final consumers, it can also increase the confidence towards a particular business or brand. It also served for compliance because we certify that production has followed international standards, and actually supply chain tracing is a legal requirement for conflict minerals coming from conflict-affected and high-risk areas, and it could be applied to cobalt and copper in the future, depending on the evolution of legislation. And one last dimension is that traceability helps recognize the efforts of upstream actors. For example, in cobalt and copper, we don't have traceability, but we have a lot of upstream actors like miners or ASM cooperatives that put in a lot of efforts to clean up the supply chain, to get rid of child labor, to improve their working conditions, and traceability would give them that extra visibility, to their customers and extra visibility.
It's interesting because you're right, a lot of traceability is focused in the 3T sectors and not a lot in cobalt and copper. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about why that is. And I know you're doing some work in that sector around building traceability. You can share a little bit about that.
Yes, so indeed we haven't traced any cobalt copper production so far. I guess the main reason is that there's a lack of incentive in the industry as a whole, because cobalt and copper are not considered conflict minerals. That's 3T and gold. So there's just not the same amount of legal requirements to demonstrate due diligence and traceability as with the 3Ts. There's also the fact that we would need to adapt the approach to cobalt and copper, where exported quantities are much more important. But that's not really the issue. The roadblocks have not been as much technical as they have been related to legality. So to trace cobalt, we need approval from the DRC government and its many agencies, and we need yeah, to remove the legality roadblock, because as per the DRC mining law, all of ASM production of cobalt and copper is illegal, because in fact it always happened on an industrial concession, which is technically illegal. So as you mentioned, however, we've been working with the EGC in the DRC, so that's the Entreprise Générale du Cobalt, and it's a DRC government-backed organization that has the mandate to eventually manage and oversee all the production and sale of ASM cobalt and copper. And yeah, there's been breakthroughs there. They officially obtained 5 mining squares from GKMIN to conduct some to start some pilot sites. And we have signed an MOU with them and will be associated in the development of those sites as technical partners for traceability. So that's pretty exciting.
Very exciting. And hopefully in our 2024 Better Mining Impact Report, we can find out a little bit more about how that pilot goes. I want to turn now and talk a little bit to Glorious about one of the things I mentioned at the start. Was one of the things we've been proud of in 2023 is around the inclusion of women in the mining sector. It's been a particular challenge, and Glorious, I know you work with Trinity a lot in Rwanda. Maybe you can start by sharing a little bit about what the main barriers are for increasing women's participation in the ASM sector.
Thanks, Heather. Hi, everyone. Well, in the past, mining activities in the community were considered as a man's job because it's too risky. Workers would spend a couple of hours in a confined space in the tunnel. Compared to the other businesses, this is the kind of business which is risky. Besides that, women poor participation in mining is due to different factors, such as the lack of alternative placement of pregnant women, breastfeeding women. There is lack of specific washroom or changing room at the mine sites. There is lack of specific strategies that can attract women in mining activities, but also the remoteness of mine sites compared to the location of workers' residency. All these factors affect the numbers of women in mining sector generally, but also for our client Trinity Metals.
I know you and Trinity have been working on that, so maybe you can share with us a little bit about what Better Mining and Trinity have been doing to address some of these challenges.
Well, as with many other mining sites, Trinity Metals also was mostly occupied by men. Women faced various barriers as listed them. So to ensure Trinity's success in terms of gender equality, Better Mining integrate the topic of gender equality in our regular meetings, where we generally discuss about the collective actions responding to the different identified risks or incidents within the mine site. So we involve the gender equality topics, such as preventing gender-based violence, reducing child abuse in the family, teenage pregnancy, and also strengthening the proportion of women in management and in decision-making roles.
That sounds great. Maybe can you give any examples of some of the initiatives that have come off the back of that?
Sure. Trinity managed to put in place the basic facilities for women to perform their work, such as washrooms for women at the working place. They can change the task for a pregnant woman to the lighter one, and they also respect the national labor law on the breastfeeding women. Trinity also has initiated a cooperative of women in the mine site, which from them they run a small business within the mine site, which help them to have another source of income and also help them to save for some money for the future. And Better Mining Women, we are also the member of that cooperative.
Amazing. And I can attest that shop has the best mandazi in Rwanda. For those who don't know, mandazi is like a small donut or fried bread. And done on the countryside, right at that woman's shop is one of the best. So Glorious, with all those initiatives that have taken place, I know that there's been significant progress that you've seen in Rwanda in terms of inclusion. So maybe you can share some of those numbers and what the overall impact has been in the community around the mining sites.
This effort has led to the increase of women in the Trinity mining operations, because the data shows that for the year 2022, all women for all three sites of Trinity Metals were 546, which is representing 11% of the workforce, and later became in 2023 1,000 and more, which represents 16% of the whole workforce. It really shows an impressive progress in hiring women. The increasing participation of women in Trinity mining activities has profound positive impact on the community of Trinity sites, and also generally on the country. So it also fosters the economic independence of women, and it helps in the development of a family. Recently, I attended the International Women's Day in Mining at one of the sites of Trinity Metals, and one lady shared a testimony with us. So she told us how she joined the mining sector with her husband. Back then, life was somehow difficult. They were struggling to get 2 meals per day. But currently, they own 2 houses and 3 cars at home, which shows participation of mining or involving women in mining sector. It also improves the stability of a family, and when a family is economically stable, it also reflects the community and in the country in general. Thank you.
A great example. Thank you so much for sharing that, Glorious. And maybe while we're talking about Trinity, Tristan, I might pass on to you. I know Trinity that's one of many initiatives that Trinity has put in place, but maybe you can talk a little bit about what else Trinity has done in advancing multi-stakeholder collaboration. In particular, I know you guys have done some great work with unauthorized miners on your sites.
Thank you so much, Hita, and thank you everyone, and hi everyone, and thank you for having me and Trinity Metals represented here. I think probably a little bit background of Trinity Metals before I go straight to the question. Trinity Metals was formed in 2022 following the merger of 3 local companies, but obviously owned by international investors in mining. And we mine in 3Ts, but we've also been busy exploring lithium in Rwanda. We have more than 7,000 employees, of which 99% are Rwandans, and at the same time of which 98% are sourced from the local communities. Coming back to the question, unauthorized mining has been the main challenge we've been facing in our daily operations, and generally because of 2 main reasons. One, those people involved in unauthorized mining have been mining for many years, and these mines we have, they are historical mines that have been mined by Belgian companies since colonial time. And from generation to generations, those people have been living through mining activities, and they don't know probably something else other than mining. So having an investor around, actually with more mechanized methods than what has been used in the past, it's perceived by the community as something that's going to take away from them the food on the table, if I may say. So you need obviously to cohabitate with the communities, and you need to ensure that they're also involved and they own your activities in the mine. So to be able to do that, you need to involve other stakeholders, including Better Mining, but also the government entities, including mainly Rwanda Mines Petroleum Gas Board, which is the regulator of the mining sector. And you also need to involve the local government, mainly the district where you're operating, but also not forgetting the communities and those people involved in unauthorized mining. They're also members of that communities where you're operating. And by identifying them and apprehending them, working with judicial organs or local security or even local government won't solve the systematic problem that of which is illegal mine, unauthorized mining. And to be able to deal with that, obviously, you need to assess the problem. Why are they involved in unauthorized mining? As I've earlier explained, it's mainly because that's the only activity they have been doing and they used to do, and that's the source of their income. So you create actually alternative employment to them, to those who are not involved in mining as per se, but you also create mining opportunities to those people to accommodate them. That's why I say that 98% of our workforce, they are sourced from the local community to ensure that they are actually participating in our mining activities. And the more you mechanizing your method, you also need to include them in other source of activities or source of income. That's where I will just give an example of one of our mines, Nyakabingo mine, where 130 people previously involved in unauthorized mining have been identified and employed by the company, and they are now responsible miners. And as you would imagine, mining in a way that is unauthorized, we don't care about safety standards, where companies like Trinity Metals, our injury, for example, frequency rate is actually within the international acceptable range. So this is something they're really happy about, and it's a way of creating alternative livelihood to them, not with the risk one and dangerous activities. And you also think about their families so that they also partner with you in curbing this issue of illegal mining. So we've bought land in neighboring communities and partners, spouses and siblings and relatives of those people whom we employed. They are also given other activities such as agriculture or even trading, and the company participates in buying from them what they can do to ensure that they are not all involved in unauthorized mining, but they actually have other alternative source of income other than mining. But also those who are passionate about mining as a career, you accommodate them within the community. And to do that, you obviously need the government on your side. You need to involve Better Mining and other NGOs active in the area, but you need also to educate the community. And by doing so, you also need to ensure that your asset protection people or security personnel, whom we even change the name to asset protection, to ensure that they don't see them as security per se, but as people in charge of protecting their assets, and those assets belong to them as we operate together. So by doing that, you also need that to ensure that the approach you use internally is a human rights based approach. By doing that, you need to train your security personnel or asset protection staff and other staff involved in interacting with the community on voluntary principles of security and human rights to ensure that when they're dealing with the community, they respect them, they respect their dignity, and they see that they are valued and they're also a member of the company, same way we respect government and other stakeholders, they are also respected. And I think this has really yielded a lot of fruit, and we've seen them as partners where initially they were mainly seen as a threat, but and we continue to improve on that front. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing, Tristan. Tristan, can I ask what's the process of recruiting previously kind of unauthorized miners for Trinity? How do you guys go about that?
That's a very interesting question. First of all, you need to have a recruitment policy, and obviously we have a recruitment policy. We also have an equal opportunity policy, and we ensure that we comply with the ILO standards, but we also comply with the Rwandan law that was actually enacted in 2018 and amended in 2023. And you also need to ensure that you're not operating as an informal sector, which is one of the stereotype about mining, where people think that mining is an informal sector and people are not complying with the law and so forth. So what you need to do is to have those policies in place. Secondly, you need to work with government in identifying those people and obviously conducting some research around the people you're employing. And you realize that there are people who have been involved in unauthorized activities. Some companies adopt an approach of rejecting them immediately on the ground that they have been previously involved in unauthorized mining and therefore unethical. But our approach is different. You need now to educate those people, partnering with government, partnering with all the stakeholders. You show them the illegal, the adverse effects of unauthorized mining. I will give an example where one of our mine, Lutongo mines, or mine team, we've conducted an exercise within schools where children have competed about the adverse effect of unauthorized mining, and which actually includes dropout rate that is high in those areas where mining is compared to other areas. So you talk to them, you engage them, and you train them. And you also, after training them, you will need to conduct the onboarding process and the induction process, which includes also health and safety. And you end up realizing that those people, they're among the best employees you can have. So it's not like you reject them initially based on their background, but you educate them and ensure that they also are involved in everything you do. And they can change, actually.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Tristan. I think it's amazing the work that you guys have done, and I think a lot of other companies can learn from it. So I'm sure a lot of people will take away something from that. So thank you so much for sharing that. As I mentioned at the start, one of the areas that we're very excited about in 2023 was expansion into a new geography, into Madagascar. And Carolyne, who is one of our project managers and who's leading our mica initiative in Madagascar. I know you've been to Madagascar recently as well, so maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about your experience in Madagascar.
Thank you, Heather, and good afternoon, everyone. For people who have never been to Madagascar, I have to say it's quite a beautiful country. The biodiversity is extraordinary. The food is really good, and I'm French, so I care about that. And the people are extremely lovely as well. Something I didn't realize before going there is how vast a country Madagascar is. So it's the size of Ukraine, but with limited infrastructure. And it's a poor country with around 80% of the population living with less than $2 a day. Another striking point for me was that it's a very young country. So around half the population is less than 18 years old. And in certain areas, especially where mica is mined, this number goes up to 2/3 of the population. So mica is mined primarily in the regions of Anus and Ondoroy. I've been to the Anus region only, but both are quite similar. So they're located in the south of the country, and this area is known for its climate. It is extremely hot and extremely dry. And one image that will stick with me is that on the road we took to drive to the different mine sites we visited during our mission, the rivers were all dried up, even though we were at the end of the rainy season. So recurring droughts have been affecting these communities for many years now. And it's getting worse with climate change. So 3 years ago, a food crisis that affected hundreds of thousands of people in that area was even labeled as the first famine caused by climate change.
Thanks for sharing that, Carolyne. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about why now, like why has Better Mining gotten involved now in Madagascar and mica, and what's the current context for that?
So there's a growing demand for Malagasy mica, and Madagascar has been the largest global exporter of sheet mica for nearly a decade now. And in parallel, there's a growing momentum to ensure that this demand is met with responsible sourcing practices. So Malagasy mica is primarily sourced from ASM mines, which I'm sure several people here know that it presents challenges and opportunities. So I'm going to highlight two main challenges. The first one being child labor. So looking at the extreme poverty levels, the young population coupled with extreme climatic events and a lack of infrastructure such as schools, all of this lead up to a higher risk of child labor in mica mine sites. And in fact, numbers put forward by several researchers show that up to 50% of the workforce are children. A second major issue is occupational health and safety risks workers face in those mines. So workers work in pits, which are holes in the ground. They're going to manually go down there and travel deep through very narrow tunnels. They will use hand tools such as pray bars and hammers. They will dig out large pieces of mica and then separate it while breathing a lot of dust. So this is really hard work, coupled with a lack of safety training and a lack of personal protective equipment. And all of this results in several injuries and fatalities. Now, this is a very bleak picture, but ASM also presents real opportunities for local development and socioeconomic growth of mining communities. As I mentioned, these communities are located in remote rural areas where mining constitutes the principal, if not the only, means for development, and can generate local purchasing power and lead to more demand for locally produced goods and services.
Thanks so much for that, Carolyne. Can you tell us a bit more about why the demand for mica? What's mica used for? I'd never heard about mica until last year, but there seems to be a growing demand for it.
So mica is used in electronics, cosmetics, construction, paint, coatings, plastics, and the automotive sector. You probably don't realize it, but you have mica all around you. And that's because it has several properties. First, it's a heat resistant, so you will find some in your kettle if you open it. It is also an electrical insulator, which makes it valuable for the production of batteries, which are then used in the automotive sector. Mica is also very pretty. As you can see in my background, these are sheets of mica. So it's shiny and flaky. So if you have a shiny paint or a shiny eyeshadow at home, it's very likely you have mica in there.
Interesting. I wonder if I have it in my makeup today. So given the challenges that you've described of the ASM sector and mica in Madagascar, why pursue projects in Madagascar and not completely stop any kind of business or mining of mica in Madagascar?
Thank you for that question, Heather. It's a very important one. So from a business point of view, it is very ineffective to disengage from ASM mines and hope that none of these minerals will ever enter your supply chain. Our experience in other geographies and other minerals show us that ASM minerals will enter global supply chains. So you don't mitigate the risk of ASM might represent for your supply chain by simply attempting to exclude it. And then from a more ethical point of view, as I mentioned, mica is the only source of revenues for many of these communities, and they live in those very dry and hot areas where other sources of revenue, such as growing crops or grazing land, may not provide sufficient income for those people. I think it would be quite irresponsible to stop doing business with them. And last but not least, these communities suffer from climatic events which are exacerbated by global warming without having been historic contributors to the rise in greenhouse gas emissions. So I think it's also a matter of climate justice to support them.
Great. And what is Better Mining's plan for Madagascar and for mica? How are we going to make it better?
So Better Mining has been working for many years now in remote and poor communities in the DRC and in Rwanda. And as highlighted by my colleagues, we've made great progress and we've had successes in mitigating certain risks, such as child labor and unsafe working conditions. So we plan to replicate what we've done and what we do best by piloting our risk monitoring program on a selected number of sites. This means we will have a team of field agents who will monitor risks, such as child labor and working conditions. And we will then work with local representative and mica producers to agree to a set of corrective actions and monitor progress towards their completion. Now, we are aware of the limited financial capabilities of these communities and that some of those corrective measures will need to be supported by other partners. So distributing the price of responsible sourcing practices across the industry through a multi-stakeholder approach will be key for the success of this program, and we're working towards that. Lastly, we've been collaborating with other partners active in this field, such as the Responsible Mica Initiative, PACT, or Terre des Hommes, to better align our strategies and activities. And the idea here is to not duplicate work already being carried out. And one early example of this is that we've been reviewing and adapting our tools and systems to align them with the Mica Craft Code, which will be the main standard for mica. And this has been developed by our partner, the Responsible Mica Initiative.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights on mica. That's really interesting, and looking forward to hearing how that's progressed in our 2024 Better Mining Impact Report. That brings us kind of to the end of this panel kind of discussion. I think it was really interesting, and thank you again to all our panelists. I'd like to encourage everybody and remind you, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A panel on the right-hand side and we can address them. If you want to address it to a particular speaker, let us know and I'll make sure I do that. And I see there's some coming in, but while we're waiting for the questions, maybe the panelists might even have questions for each other. We've got a pretty unique situation because we have Petra, not to put you guys on the spot, but we got Petra on one end of the supply chain from the downstream side and Tristan from the upstream side. So maybe there's a question there.
Yeah, I'm very interested, especially with the Trinity has done maybe, because I find it very hard and difficult to mitigate. It is hard to mitigate the risk in the informal sector, and if I've understood you correctly, you worked a lot on these to make the informal sector more formal, which is really, really great. And I would like to hear a little bit more about that and the kind of advantages or positive effect that has had on, with regards to the formalization of the sector. That would be super to hear a bit more elaboration on that, I think.
Thank you so much, Petra, for the question. And we most of the time meet during report and not really physically. But I would say that on Trinity side, which is not really exceptional, you would compare this to other companies that are operating in a more professional way. As I said, mining has been in Rwanda and in the region for many years, since colonial time. That's before, I think it's around 1930s. So it's really long ago. And people have been involved in mining even afterward, but not using really mechanized mining. It has been artisanal mining. But artisanal mining by itself is not a problem, but also the methods that were used in mining were also artisanal. But also people were not paid through banks, if I may say. People were not paying tax, and all of these show that the sector has been predominantly informal. But with time, you've got, I would say, legal framework in the country, an institutional framework that was necessary to ensure that you're professionalizing the sector. I would say that in Rwanda, we've been having in the past the Ministry of Natural Resources, and but now we have Rwanda Miners Board that is focusing on daily basis. Their work is on professionalizing the sector and formalizing it. And on the legal aspect, you've got laws that have been amended over time to align the practices with the international standards or industry global standards. And as I've said, we have even the new mining law that was enacted this year, July, to ensure that we also operate in that regard. But coming back to Trinity, I was just talking about the country where we operate, but coming back to Trinity, since 2022, as I have earlier mentioned, we've got 7,500 employees, and all of these employees are paid, for example, if I may give that as an example, they're paid through bank, which means they can access loans and then which means also you pay all the tax. The export you conduct outside of the country, you pay also royalties and export tax, because you need to have a certificate of origin, and you can't get these unless you've paid tax. And you've got also data mining, verifying and providing you feedback from what you're doing, and also ensuring that you align with OECD guidelines and other international standards. And as a company also that is operating at a global scale, and also I would say with a reputation, we also ensure that whatever we do, we align with the international standards of human rights, but also industry standards. So it has been a journey, if I may cut the story short, and we're still on that journey. But as I said earlier, we don't longer consider mining as an informal sector. We consider mining as a formal sector, the same way we have banking sector, we have laws and regulations, the same way banks have laws and regulations. We have a regulator, RMB, the same way banks have central bank, and other institutions in the country also regulated. So it's a regulated sector and no more informal. But obviously, it's not all the companies that are at the level of Trinity. All we do, we take ourselves as leaders in the industry and ensure that whatever we're doing, we also helping other companies. Over recently, there was an accident where our specialized rescue team was sent to help another mining company that is not related to us. It shows how much we committed to ensure that we participate to developing the sector, but also ensuring that those who are not operating in a formal way are also formalized. And the government is doing the same on various fronts to ensure that everyone operating in the sector is formal. But as far as we're concerned, I would say we really have made very many progress, and we aligned with whatever you would call formal, not informal. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Tristan. Okay, with that, again, just want to say thank you so much to all our panelists, particularly to Petra and Tristan for taking time, and for both the support that you've given to Better Mining over the years. I would like to encourage everybody, if you haven't already, please download our Better Mining 2023 Impact Report. It's a great read. It's a great way to understand what we do as Better Mining and understand the impact that Better Mining has. If you ever want to talk to anybody, we'll be sending out this webinar, but if you ever want to talk to anybody from the Better Mining team, whether to understand more, or you're keen to get involved, feel free to reach out at any time. Thank you, everybody, and hope you have a good day.